Gamarjavat. Welcome to our episode of Liberland and Georgia. Today we are shooting in the space of the Franklin Club. It's an intellectual think tank that helps people around all the world to interconnect, to share their ideas on classical libertarianism and libertarian ideas. And thanks to them, we can make happen our podcast. Today we have a special guest that came from Slovakia and Paraguay and Panama and everywhere. It's Pavol Luptak. He's a perpetual traveler and an ethical hacker, crypto anarchist, and he's one of the first people who were around Liberland ever. How are you, Pavol?
I'm fine. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you so much for coming. It's your second time in Tbilisi, am I right?
No, I visited Tbilisi many times. Last year I was here last year, but we visited Tbilisi maybe 3 times before.
Yeah,
so
amazing.
this is my, if not second, then third home.
And what takes you back?
I like Georgia, and I especially can see how Georgia is improving over time. Because, for example, I visited Georgia maybe 5 or 7 years ago, and it was a bit different country. So now I can see there is definitely more capitalism, and I can also see a positive effects of these economic reforms that took place in Georgia many years ago. So for me, it's always a very positive experience. Despite the fact that prices are higher now, than they were, for example, last year, but it's still a very, very nice and very pleasant city to live.
Thank you so much. Would you mind sharing more details on what you find especially improving from the capitalist area and economical area?
Yeah. I think that if you are developing country, and Georgia was definitely developing country many years ago, you need some economic reforms, and it took some time to have some effects. And so just a good economical condition are not enough. You need capital, and we can see recently that there's quite big capital, especially for Russian citizens, for example, now. So when you have a good combination of economic reforms and some capital, then you can create new services, new sectors of services, for example. Yeah, so it just takes some time.
Yeah, I remember last year you came and you were so excited about 24/7 shops here, 24/7 pharmacies and so on, which is something that doesn't really take place in Europe, where often the shops are closed for the weekends and so on. So I remember that you were just walking the streets of Tbilisi and you were excited that, oh my God, this is a capitalistic heaven.
Exactly. I love free markets, and especially in Georgia and other countries like Dubai, for example, we can still see free markets in practice, because in the European Union, in Slovakia, Czech Republic, and other countries, most markets are highly regulated. As you mentioned, for example, shops or restaurants are open until 8 p.m. or 10 p.m. and then it's closed. And so yeah, I've especially appreciate these free markets here. And for example, one typical thing is that in Georgia you have the application, you send me the link a vault. We also have this application in Europe, by the way, European Union, Europe, because Georgia is also part of Europe from this point of view. And you can use this application vault to call a PCR test, or to make the PCR test, which is super cool, because I think that, for example, and this service is 24 per 7, so you can call this service anytime you want in Georgia and Tbilisi. And I think thanks to regulation, we don't have such services in European Union, just because some regulation, I guess, some regulation in medicine or health system. So we don't have such application. And it's very practical, very very useful. And this is just a very small fraction, small part of how free markets can look, and how they're really missing, for example, in European Union.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any other example of this, which you see like really is the result of the free market effect here in Georgia and is non-existent in Europe or maybe even in other countries, because you visited more than 100 of countries around the world?
Maybe I can mention one example of one wine farmer I met a few days ago, and because the mainstream propaganda in Georgia is that let's join the European Union and then everything will be solved and we'll be just happy, and the level, the quality of life will be super high. And I had a small talk with this wine farmer, and he mentioned me, for example, that now he pays 1% income tax. So I told him, man, you should be quite sure that you never will pay like 1% income tax, for example, in Europe. And then he told me, okay, and I also pay no taxes for like no property tax. And I told him, this is also not possible in Europe. You have to pay some property tax. And then he mentioned me, I don't need to pay like healthcare insurance. And I told him, this is also not possible in Europe. You have to pay healthcare insurance. And then he mentioned me, okay, and now I can produce like a wine from grapes, and I can sell it to anyone and I want without any regulation. And I told him, man, this is also not possible in Europe, you know. So the thing is that of course European Union can bring you like a huge market when you can sell your products or your services. This is definitely a good thing. Another thing, what is not so good, but it's perceived by majority of people as good, are subsidies. So you can subsidies are like a financial support from the government or from the European Union, and all agriculture, like the whole agriculture industry is completely subsidized in European Union. So it's quite likely that there will be like extra money for this agriculture, but I don't think it's a good idea, because then we should subsidize everything, and it's not. And then thanks to subsidies, basically we are killing competition in the European Union, because then when the, for example, farmers receive a lot of money from the government, then there is no such need to improve their local processes, to make cheaper their prices, for example. There is no such pressure, like a competitive pressure, like when you have no subsidies at all. But this can be also perceived by these pro-European politicians here in Georgia like an advantage, but I do not consider it as an advantage.
Nicely said. It reminds me, I don't remember who said it, but it was one of the libertarian reads. And it was the idea that by subsidies, when you get money for agriculture, so what happens is that you start growing products in non-perfect location, because you just can't get, because you got money for it, but naturally because you want to make money on it, so you grow products in their ideal location, or you try so. And I feel in Europe that because of those dotations that are around Europe for the products, like especially fruits and veggies, so it actually decreased the quality, because when you go to a shop in the Czech Republic, so everything is imported, and so it doesn't have any taste and so on. And from my experience talking to other expats who live here in Georgia, everyone be just like going to shops, even the supermarket, and be like, wow, this is a tomato, and it tastes like a tomato.
Maybe I should add that European Union is fighting for, you know, this ecological for the ecological regulation and so on. But the thing is that subsidies, like for example in the agriculture, have opposite anti-ecological effect. I'm going to explain you. Like, the thing is that when you have like a Spanish farmers, for example, or Italian farmers, and they receive a lot of subsidies for their apples or tomatoes, it doesn't matter. So then it makes economical sense from, for example, check like shopping centers or like these wholesale companies to import like cheap subsidized apples from or tomatoes from Spain or Italy, and then it doesn't make economical sense to grow and to sell like a local production of apples or tomatoes, and so basically, and it's not very ecological to bring something to Czech Republic or Slovakia from Spain, especially when we have like a good condition to grow it by ourselves. So especially in this case, we can see that these subsidies can have like a negative ecological consequences at the same time, and this situation can be easily solved by just no subsidies. You know, one of the the countries that doesn't have any subsidies in agriculture and is like a top leader in agriculture is New Zealand, for example.
Interesting. And it's interesting because often when you go to a shop in Holland, Netherlands, or Italy, I remember I was actually buying apples from New Zealand, which I found very comical.
And it's interesting. So you can see that in New Zealand, despite the fact they have no like subsidies, no support from the government, they are so competitive, so productive that they can afford to export their apples, for example, or the vegetable and fruits to Europe, and it still make economic sense for them.
Yeah, I was talking on the weekend to my friend who lives here. She's also Czech, and we were discussing how come that here you go to a shop and a Polish butter costs the same as the Georgian butter when you consider that there's VAT, that there's the shipping. Yes, exactly. So how comes? And then I was thinking, I don't, because I mean, when you go around Georgia, there are cows everywhere, even worse. Yeah, exactly. And how come that a European butter with European higher cost for the workforce and so on, and the land and so on, it's more expensive? How can it cost the same? And then I was saying, I don't think that it's actually a natural cost that we just because we got used to low prices for milk products, it doesn't mean that they are actually that cheap. We pay them actually by our taxes.
Yeah, there are two explanations for this situation. Either Polish farmers are super productive and super efficient and like a super good in production of butter, or there are just European subsidies. And I would guess that this is the second option.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. Do you have any other area in Georgia that you would say that is especially like outstanding to you?
Definitely banking industry. Like we persuaded a lot of people to open the bank account in Georgia. This is quite strange and quite sad. I'm the citizen of Slovakia. I don't have residence in Slovakia. So, for example, Slovak banks in my home country are not willing to open me the bank account. But I have no problem to open the bank account in Georgia. So I would really appreciate that that Georgian banks are so open and so kind to foreigners. So it's just using your passport. It's super easy to open the bank account. And I can compare this situation, for example, with Panama or some South American countries where I also live. And opening the bank account in these countries is super difficult and very complicated bureaucratic process. So what I can say, Georgia is the country where it's the most easy for foreigners to open, and also for locals to open the bank account.
Maybe would you provide us an example of what you need to do in order to open a bank account in Panama or Paraguay?
Oh, okay. So
it's an interesting comparison, I think.
So you need like a reference letters. You need two reference letters from the local bank, for example, in Europe, Slovakia, Czech Republic, that you're like a good customer and this is your balance then you need like another 2 professional references from your customers or from employer or something. And then you need another 2 references, I think, from your friend or personal or family or someone, like a lot of references. Then you need proof of your income. This is like quite interesting because if you're like rich and you don't have regular income, you may have problem with opening bank account. So rich people may have problems opening bank account, and you need this proof of address. You need to make the translation with the apostille and everything. So it's like it's really complicated process, and this is just all documents. And of course, like very often they want like a list from the criminal record register, and your passport copy, and you need all these documents just to submit to the application request. And it takes like 4 weeks, for example. Wow. Just to check and then they will do some background checks of you, for example. And after 4 weeks, they let you know like if you're okay if they are willing to open the bank account or not at all. But mostly nothing happens, so they completely ignore your submission. So wow. So this is like a very complex, especially in Panama. It's the country where it's the most complicated to open the bank account. Like average time with the opening bank account, it's probably 1 month. And when you want to open the bank account for a company, its average time is probably 6 months.
Wow.
So basically, imagine the situation that you are in Panama. You're opening the bank account for Panamanian company, and it takes 6 months. And usually you need to visit the bank physically several times. So something like opening the bank account, which is technically possible in Georgia, not possible at all in Panama. So it's really, really complicated. And of course, for example, in Paraguay or most countries, you have to be the local resident. Mm-hmm. So if you don't have residency in the given country, no bank will be able to open the bank account. But here in Georgia, because you just need your passport. Mm-hmm. You don't need to have like a physical residency here to open a bank account.
I would say that also, like I use Bank of Georgia, I used TBC before, and I have a very good experience with that. Like both applications are working perfectly, no problem. MFA by default, despite it's by SMS, but it's working. There's an option to download an app to get more secured. 24/7 support. Most things can be done online in the app. There's integrated also the system to pay services and so on. This is something in Europe you can dream about. I remember that my account was blocked for withdrawing some 100 lari abroad from my Czech account 3 times, and then they blocked me. I had so many problems with that, and I have never experienced such problems with Georgian accounts. And also the applications are working flawlessly. Or when they have an outage, it's planned. They let me know that the system won't be working from 3 to 5. I'm like, wow, this is it's really good. It's much better than in Europe to me.
And maybe I should mention the most important advantage of Georgian bank accounts, and all these banks are crypto friendly because all European banks are crypto unfriendly.
Yeah.
And not only European banks, but also like most of our banks are crypto unfriendly. For example, Paraguayan banks, they do not recognize source of income from crypto at all. So for Paraguayan banks, crypto basically doesn't exist. So I consider this to be one of the best feature. This crypto friendliness.
I also remembered now that when I was opening the account in the Czech Republic, so by default you have a Czech currency only there. And when you want to open the USD account, you have to go to the bank, wait for 2 hours and sign thousands of papers here. And then you might be granted a USD account, but then they also need to make some checks and so on. And I've been waiting for a week to get just the USD account number, despite I've been a customer of the same bank for 5 or 7 years, which was crazy.
Maybe I should open another topic, and it's crypto legislation. Firstly, crypto legislation in Georgia is very simple. Zero tax, like a capital gain tax, it's zero. I like describe the situation, for example, in Slovakia, because it's like a really crazy. So in Slovakia, when you want to buy a cup of coffee with your crypto, any crypto like a Bitcoin, Lightning, officially, when you want to pay, for example, €1 or €2 for one cup of coffee, you should find out the price for which you bought the Bitcoin you are going just to use now. Then you should find the price of Bitcoin, what is the current price of Bitcoin. Then you should find out how much did you earn from these two different rates. And then from these difference, like for example, Bitcoin from the gain, you should pay 21 or 22% income tax and additionally 14% healthcare insurance tax. So basically, you are paying almost 40% taxes for all crypto transactions. Nobody does it, but this is legislation. So basically, it means all people in Slovakia just break the law.
Yeah, this is crazy. Okay, thank you so much for your Georgian insight and for comparing it to the word. Slightly, just to mention and get to the topic of Liberland. So, how did your journey with Liberland started? Shortly,
I became libertarian like a few years before Liberland. For me, in the beginning, it was like a crazy project that something like that is possible, because when a person is becoming libertarian, basically everybody is analyzing the concept of state, like the philosophical construct of state, how states have authority, for example, like who decides some authority to the state that I have a monopoly, for example, in these areas. And so I was interested in Liberland just because for me it was like a philosophical experiment in some way, because Liberland is a project that questions legitimacy of states. Most people they don't question legitimacy of states, and they think they're completely natural, and they just need to follow some laws, and that the prime minister or like a president has some kind of absolute power of members of parliament. And Liberland was an interesting project because Liberland basically, I would not say like exploit, but basically, take advantage from the fact that there was some like dispute land between Croatia and Serbia. So basically, this piece of land was not registered in the cadastre, like land register of land in Serbia or Croatia. So some crazy guy from the Czech Republic came to this place and just declared that this will be Liberland, because there is like international agreement from the last century that when you have like a physical land and you have a population and you have enough capacities to make a diplomatic relation, then you can legally, according to this international agreement, you can legally declare your own country, your own state, and at the same time, you don't need acceptance of other countries. So for me, Liberland is a very interesting experiment when we can see there is no principal difference between the country like Liberland and Slovakia. Everything is just about belief.
Yeah.
You just believe. Everything is in our mind, and that's why I like Project Liberland, because it basically questions legitimacy of states we have now, like a national state. So that was the one main reason why I started to think that Liberland may be a very interesting project. And then I realized that that it started to attract a lot of libertarians and freedom-minded people. And then I realized that Liberland can be a really good PR project of freedom, worldwide project.
This is nice. You're one of the Liberland citizens, right?
Yeah.
Do you have your passport with you?
Unfortunately, not.
Oh, Jesus.
If I knew about this interview, I would definitely take it with me. But
that's completely fine.
Next time, I will bring it with me.
Have you ever used it somehow?
I wanted, but there was no opportunity. But as I know, like Colombia recognize or should recognize Liberland passport, and I used to visit Colombia often, so I definitely want to try it next time I visit Colombia.
It's one of our latest success, I would say, like from the diplomatic perspective. So it's been about 2 weeks old. When you mentioned the libertarian community around Liberland, what were some major events or opportunities for you to interconnect with other Liberlanders? Or are there any specific places where you were like surprised, wow, I met Liberlanders out here?
Yeah, like for example, a few years ago we visited Ecuador, and I was supposed like how many supporters Liberland has in Ecuador. Mm-hmm. And we basically were invited by these people. We did a presentation about Liberland in Ecuador, and these people, they took care about us, and it was really, really nice experience. And it was just one random country like Ecuador, where you would definitely not expect like anyone who knows anything about Liberland. So Ecuador was just one case, and of course, in the past I attended like many times this Liberland conference and Liberland festival in Serbia 1 year or 2 years ago, and it was also like a nice experience.
And last question, have you ever achieved to visit Liberland yourself, like to stand on the land?
No, because every time I visited Liberland, I was there with a huge group of people, and every time there was like armed soldiers with the guns defending Liberland. Yeah. So unfortunately, every time I was so close to the island, it was not possible.
Yeah, maybe just I will provide the context, and it is that despite the land is between Croatia and Serbia, Croatia says it's Serbian land, and Serbia says it's not our land. And there's river around all this, Danube, and the Croatian police guys are actually guarding Liberland out here, which is already on, let's say, the Serbian side, so they don't have the right to do so. I had the same experience as you did. I was floating on the boat towards Liberland, and there were Croatian police guys who were guarding it.
Croatian guys that are basically occupying Liberland, it seems so.
But at the same time, it's like a free security service. We could thank to all the Croatian taxpayers for guarding our land. Yeah, but I had the same experience. Okay, thank you so much for coming. And that's it for today's episode. Let me know how you liked it. And if you have any other questions, there are the comments.